In the golden afternoon light that filtered through Lincoln High School's tall windows, Robert Hayes pushed his maintenance cart down the familiar hallway. His weathered hands gripped the handle with the same gentle strength he'd shown through 15 years of keeping these corridors clean. The name tag on his gray work shirt simply read, Robert H., but to those who truly knew him, he was so much more. At 52, Robert carried himself with quiet dignity. His salt and pepper hair was always neatly combed, and despite the demanding nature of his work, he maintained the bearing of a man who understood his worth wasn't measured by his job title. The walking cane he carried wasn't just a tool. It was a necessity since the accident that had changed everything 5 years ago. Robert had once been a construction foreman, building homes and dreams across the county. But when a scaffolding collapse left him with a permanent injury to his left leg, those days ended abruptly. With a teenage daughter to raise alone since his wife's passing, he couldn't afford pride. He took the custodial job at Lincoln High, grateful for steady work and health insurance. His daughter Sarah was 17 now, a bright, determined girl who wore her school blazer with the same quiet dignity her father possessed. She was everything to Robert: honor roll student, debate team member, and the light that kept him going through the darkest moments of starting over. The challenge came on a Tuesday afternoon in March. Coach Bradley Morrison, the school's newly hired athletic director, was striding down the hallway with his usual swagger. In his mid-30s, Morrison carried himself like a man who believed his college football trophies still mattered. His pressed polo shirt and perfectly styled hair spoke of someone who'd never known real struggle. As Robert carefully navigated around a group of students, his cane caught slightly on the polished floor. Morrison stopped, a smirk playing at his lips. "You know, Hayes?" Morrison said, his voice carrying just loud enough for nearby students to hear. "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time this school hired someone more capable for maintenance. Someone who can actually move efficiently around here." The hallway grew quiet. Students glanced between the two men, sensing the tension. Robert paused, leaning slightly on his cane. His voice, when it came, was steady and calm. "I do my job well, Coach Morrison. Have been for 15 years. 15 years of moving like a snail," Morrison laughed. "I could clean this entire school in half the time it takes you to do one wing." The cruelty of the moment hung in the air. Here was a man mocking another's disability, someone who clearly had never faced real hardship. Sarah appeared at the end of the hallway, having heard the commotion. Her face flushed with anger and embarrassment, not for her father, but for the man who thought so little of human dignity. Robert looked at his daughter, then back at Morrison. Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, but a quiet resolve that comes from years of quiet strength. "Coach Morrison," Robert said, his voice carrying the weight of experience, "if you think you can do better, I'd be happy to let you try. Tomorrow after school. We'll see who can clean the gymnasium more thoroughly." Morrison's eyes lit up with cruel delight. "You're on, old man. And when I win, because I will win, maybe you'll consider finding work better suited to your limitations." The next afternoon, a small crowd had gathered in the gymnasium. Word had spread, as it does in small communities. Teachers, students, and staff members lined the bleachers, though their presence felt more like a vigil than entertainment. Principal Martinez handed both men identical cleaning supplies. "1 hour," she announced. "Thoroughness and quality count, as much as speed." Morrison immediately began racing around the gymnasium, mopping with broad, hasty strokes. He worked with the frantic energy of someone trying to prove a point rather than actually clean. Robert, meanwhile, began methodically. He started by carefully moving the equipment, creating clear pathways. His movements were deliberate, economical. Despite his cane, he had developed techniques over the years that maximized efficiency while minimizing strain. As the minutes passed, something remarkable became apparent. While Morrison was creating streaks and missing corners in his haste, Robert was creating something approaching artistry. Every surface he touched became genuinely clean. His years of experience showed in how he angled the mop, how he reached difficult spots, how he checked his work with the pride of a craftsman. The crowd began to notice. Whispers rippled through the bleachers, not of mockery, but of recognition. They were watching a master at work. With 15 minutes remaining, Morrison was breathing heavily, his shirt soaked with sweat. He looked around frantically, realizing that speed without skill had left much of his area poorly cleaned. Robert continued at his steady pace, his breathing even, his movements sure. The gymnasium floor gleamed behind him like a mirror. When the hour ended, the difference was unmistakable. Morrison's section looked hastily cleaned, with streaks, missed spots, and equipment carelessly shoved aside. Robert's section was pristine, not just clean, but cared for. The crowd erupted in applause, but Robert simply nodded and began collecting his supplies. Morrison stood in the center of his messy section, sweat dripping, his arrogance deflated. For the first time, perhaps, he saw the difference between doing a job and mastering one. Principal Martinez stepped forward. "I think we all learned something today about the value of experience, dignity, and taking pride in honest work." As the crowd dispersed, Sarah approached her father. Her eyes were bright with tears of pride. "Dad," she said softly, "I've always known you were the strongest person I know. Today everyone else learned it too." Robert smiled, adjusting his grip on his cane. "Strength isn't about moving fast, sweetheart. It's about moving forward, no matter what?" Later that evening, Morrison appeared at Robert's small apartment. Gone was the swagger, replaced by something that looked like humility. "Mr. Hayes," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong. About you. About what strength looks like. About what matters. I've been thinking all day about my own father. He worked in a factory for 30 years, came home tired every night but never complained. I think somewhere along the way I forgot what real dignity looks like." Robert invited him in for coffee. They talked until late that night. About fathers and daughters, about pride and prejudice, about the quiet heroism of showing up every day and doing your best with what you have. From that day forward, Morrison became one of Robert's strongest advocates at the school. He started a program pairing student athletes with maintenance staff, teaching them about the value of all honest work. Robert continued his rounds at Lincoln High, his cane tapping a gentle rhythm on the polished floors. But now, when students and teachers saw him coming, they didn't just see the janitor. They saw a man who had faced life's hardest challenges with grace, who had raised a remarkable daughter alone, and who had shown them all that true strength isn't measured by how fast you can move, but by how steadily you can stand. In a world that often mistakes noise for significance, Robert Hayes had reminded them that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply show up, do your work with dignity, and treat every person you meet with the respect they deserve. And in the golden afternoon light that still filtered through those tall windows, that lesson continued to shine.